So I'm still cruising around the city of Balykchy, and I'm just walking actually in the area close to the hostel I'm staying in. And I noticed there's these great street art here. There's paintings on the buildings, paintings posted on street corners. I thought I would come down and cruise around and have a quick look. It's very, very interesting. And then I also see some sculptures and monuments on a street corner. So I'm going to have a look over here. Look at that. Now, if my research is correct, this is a monument to Sayak Bey Karely, or in Russian, Karelev. It's very interesting. They have the two leopards on either side, just like the Queen Tomana's story in Kazakhstan that I mentioned in an earlier video. Now, from what I understand, this Sayak Bey Karelev is a historical person who's, I guess we'd say, a Kyrgyz. Is that correct? Would I say Kyrgyz? No, Kyrgyz. The Kyrgyz people of East and Central Asia. This fellow here apparently lived in around 1900 or 1880. He was reciting the famous Manas epic story. So Sayak Bey Karelev is a famous Kyrgyz epic storyteller. The epic poem Manas was 500,000 lines. It's a very famous story in history to the local peoples of Central Asia, and it's also obviously dear to the heart of the people that are in Kyrgyzstan. About the story of this fellow, because I thought it was quite interesting. Now, Manas, the epic poem, actually it's called, is about the hero of Manas. Apparently it's from an original Persian manuscript from the late 1700s. It's supposed to represent, they say, a story from like 700 AD or something. There's dispute over this. Like, how could somebody know a 500,000 line poem without it being written before the late 1700s? That's the dispute from some Western historical narratives, actually. But the local people here seem to have no problem understanding that, because there's lots of ancient epic stories that are recited by memory through poems and songs that are passed down through generation. So the story itself, the hero Manas, is about an ancient man or leader named Manas from this area, his son Samatea, and his grandson Setaek. Apparently, it documents the history of the interaction between the Kyrgyz people of East and Central Asia and other Turkic, Mongolic, and Chinese people that were in the area at that time. So it's probably worth looking into. So I'm going to take a little gander now over to the side and just show you some of the artwork that they have displayed around the street corners here, which I think is quite interesting. So very similar art here that I see in Kazakhstan. The depictions are very similar. The monuments are very similar. So obviously there's a connection between Kyrgyzstan and the people of Kazakhstan. They're right across from each other here. Now, I would assume, of course, that these are probably parts of famous stories that are depicted by art. I'm not sure exactly what they are. They might be in the Manas. It is interesting. Looks like there's griffins again. There's a lot of griffins in the folklore here. As I mentioned in an earlier podcast or video that I did, a lot of the depictions of the ancient armaments of the people here look eerily familiar to what you would see in medieval Europe or even the so-called Romans. But you see these people and this attire that they have here, which is indicative of the Saka people, which were, 500 BC, long before that, and up to about 200 BC, they say, that reigned this area. So there seems to be a connection. But this type of artwork you see commonly all over the city. Again, whether they're depicting just normal history here, folklore, or it's actually of the same Manas epic poem, I'm not sure. So I'm walking along here, and I see what I think is called the Al-Amin Meshit, or Meshit, which means mosque. in the local language. So what's interesting to me is this mosque is old school design, I would say. I don't mean it's old. I mean, look at the design of it. Doesn't it look like a cathedral? It sure does to me. I mean, it looks almost exactly the same, but in a miniature version of a lot of the cathedrals that you would see in Europe. The style's similar in North America that I've seen. The difference, of course, is the crescent moon on the top, on the aerial, which I call it. Looks like a transmitting aerial or something. So it's just a very interesting design. The Al Amin Mashit. Al, which may be Allah, which would make sense. God and Amen has something to do with God. I'm not sure how the translation works out. That's just my interpretation.